Alright, it's time for the second part of my Ascension review. I got a new background, new PNGs, and overall, let's go! It's a medium, not a genre. It's not part-time, it's a lifetime. So now that all the Tier 1 dimensions are covered, it's time to move on to Tier 2, which is more dimensions than Tier 1, so be ready. So the first dimension in the lineup is the Abyss. It is a demonic gory dimension where nearly every mob and location will late the body horror, the exceptions being the bosses, which I will get to later.
I've been to the planet of dogs, and even I find this place vulgar.
Can you please, I was in the middle of something. Next is Candyland. And it's exactly what you think it is. Candy is everywhere and everyone, including the boss. So now, since it's sort of self-explanatory, we can move on to the next dimension now. So, the next one is Sleep. This is a red and blue clown dimension containing different types of spooky clowns. The designs of them are various enough for you to not get one clown confused for a different one. And after that, we have Cristavia. A pretty dark dimension illuminated by mounds of crystals. Crystals both serve as the plants and the currency of this dimension, which can be traded for crystal-themed weapons. This dimension also has one of the more interesting mob themes, as they are each considered a crystal construct. Like how I construct smiles on other faces. Up next is Gardentia. This dimension is centered around plants, and its environment is really green with giant flowers throughout. This place has some of my favorite enemy designs, like the Squasher and the Carrot Top. And after that, there's the Haven. This is one of the first dimensions I think of when it comes to this mod, as it was the first one you were expected to go to in the mod's earliest version. Fun fact. It is a dimension with floating islands and a very colorful color scheme. It is pretty simple, and I don't think it had any major updates since its introduction. So the next dimension is Iromine. This dimension is centered around mechanical constructs. I like the color scheme of this location quite a bunch.
Reminds me of my teeth before my first dentist appointment. FYI.
Okay, so this next dimension is Mysterium. This dimension is an underground mushroom-filled area with multiple structures. Being a dimension introduced in the first version of the mod, has gone through quite a few changes, as there were previously a large castle in it, but now it has been removed. There is also a surface level in this dimension with its own structure. And the last dimension of this tier is the Vox Ponds. This dimension is a dark, poisonous wasteland with implications of having a much more welcoming environment in the past. This dimension also requires wearing a hazmat armor in order to not suffocate due to the toxic air. There are two layers to this dimension, where the upper layer has small hills, occasional toxic ponds, and withering trees. The bottom layer consists of an endless toxic lake. Wow, that was a lot. I was starting to get back into my monotone. You're telling me? How did our old man Fox be so various? Yeah, so after that long tier, we move on to tier 3. First off for this tier is Dystopia. Usually the darkest of all the dimensions. It is a flat land with tons of creepy mobs and structures. Might as well mention that on the mod's official website, which your picture of the dimension is just black. Spooky. Next up is the Grekken. Speaking of spooky, this dimension features a lot of purple and a lot of spooks. I honestly have trouble deciding which dimension between this and Dystopia is less likely for me to go to. Despite that, it's probably the dimension I find the least interesting, at least in this tier. So after that is Liborian. This dimension serves as a giant ocean where all the structures are submerged in water. I like the somewhat calming vibe the dimension provides, despite still being very dangerous. Also, Kurtis are adorable. I didn't think I'd say that about one of these bombs.
Not bad.
So up next is Linless. This dimension resembles outer space and is full of spacewalks of different shapes and sizes. This number of different structures in the dimension is quite huge. Like, whoa, that's intimidating. So the last dimension in this tier is Runander. This is definitely my favorite dimension of this tier. I love the blue color scheme and how this dimension feels more like an RPG than any of the others. This dimension can also be accessed two different ways, which none of the other ones do. Takes me back to my laughing day. Now comes the final tier and only has one dimension. That dimension is the Shirelands. The dimension is similar to Latia, as it has a void underneath its flat surface, except it only has one structure underneath compared to all the stuff in that dimension. Speaking of structures, this dimension is full of structures that give off the feeling of an abandoned fantasy town. This mod actually has an untiered dimension called Nowhere, which I thought I might as well add at the end. Currently, this dimension only serves as a room you can't edit, even creative. I think I heard that it has more planned in the future though, so don't worry. I got you covered.
I'm feeling nauseous from all of the mountain hopping you've been doing.
Well, my fine little friend, we'll be taking a detour from that to talk about the bosses. Considering how long I talked about the dimensions for, I'll keep this a little briefer, especially since there are more bosses than dimensions, if that could be perceived. So guys, please don't interfere so we can just get this over with. I can't make any promises. So first off is Bane from the Grekken. They turn invisible and make clones of different sizes. Next is Baroness from Baroness. She's pretty nice. He spawns special bombs from afar and has a temporary shield. Next is Clunkhead from Runander. They shoot projectiles and regen health when it gets low enough. Not a super big fan of his design, but I guess it fits the area. After that is Corrales from Liborian. She moves really fast and summons homing projectiles. She actually used to be fought in the overworld, fun fact. After that is Kanda from Candyland. He keeps changing colors and you are supposed to use a specific staff weapon to harm him. That sounds like what I believe is a RuneScape boss, but I never played so I wouldn't know for sure. So next is Quaxus from the Shirelands. He actually has two phases. For the first, he rides a mount where he deals projectile shots, along with a super powerful one. And for his second phase, he gets off his mount and deals melee damage and occasionally leaps at the player, catching them off guard. Also, when he is off his mount, his name changes to Zx, which I don't find as interesting. But I recognize it doesn't really matter that much, so we'll not harp on it. So next is Crystacora from Crystevia. Changes colors and will give you a different potion to debuff each color. That sounds really cool to me. Following up that is Cleve from Cribonia. He's used for explosive bullets at quick speeds. And next is Thracion from Laborian. He uses melee attacks and can also cause a screen effect that can trouble you. Like a lot, it's quite spooky. The next is Elusive from the Abyss. He overlooks and spawns clones that will cause multiple details and explode on death. You can probably see what I mentioned before that. It just doesn't have the scariest bosses. They're still cool. So next is the 4 Guardians from the Haven. All the Guardians have different projectile attacks. Red shoots bonus and flickering projectiles. Blue shoots blindness and flickering projectiles. Green shoots explosive projectiles, and yellow shoots faster, the less powerful ones. You know, if I wanted to, I could stylize the way I talked about these bosses as like a rap song sort of, but I don't want to put these bosses through that. So after that is Graf from Larietta. He fires explosive projectiles and messes with gravity. After that is Gyro from Salif. He can fly and shoot very fast bullets. And next is the Hive from Gyarados. He is able to summon minions with a chance of spawning multiple within a short time span. Yikes. After that is King Bam 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 from the Nether. He fires explosive projectiles and summons explosive minions. Next is King Shroomish from Mysterium. He shoots multiple debuff projectiles and occasionally heals himself. Next up is Core from the Deeplands. He is extremely strong and gives you slowness. I've also noticed that this boss actually had a visual redesign with more detail than its previous version. Next is Mechbot from Iromine. He will leap high into the air and drop bombs at occasional times. Next is the Netgenic, whether it's kind of difficult to pronounce. He's from the Nether, so it's the original Wither, as he shoots projectiles like he does, except he shoots them faster this time, so watch out for that. After that is Primordial 5 from Dystopia. It is a group of 5 bosses that are fought individually after each other with different attacks. Keep in mind that I am not going into every single detail with each of these bosses, and I feel like the Primordial 5 is a good example of that. I'm just trying to give a good feel of the basics. So after that is Rock Rider from the Haven. He has a melee form where he is immune to melee damage, and ranged form he is immune to range damage. Next is Shadow Lord from the Abyss. He uses poison nausea, causing projectiles that get more deadly as the fight goes on. Next up is Skeletal Army from Blacacia. The main boss is Skeletron, and this fight serves as a gauntlet of skeleton enemies until you fight them. From what I've heard, I think this boss is considered like one of the most popular ones due to how unique his fighting style is. So after that is Smash from the Overworld. This is intended to be the first boss you fight, as his only ability is to launch you in the air after an attack. It can be easy to cheese, just stand a few blocks of it. But it isn't even that hard to do. And next is Tyrosaur from Blacacia. It will occasionally stomp the ground to deal damage to people in the radius. After that is Vinylcorn from Gardentia. You can summon 5 different minions that each have different statistics. Once again, like, I won't be going into real specifics, so you can check those out yourself. The mods will out there. Anyway, after that is Vigilant from Lunalist. All he does is teleport around after dealing melee damage. The last boss we have is Voxulon from the Vox Pond. There's a chance to spawn meteors from the sky and poison people that surround it. Here are the bosses and dimensions that have been deleted or still planned to show up in the future. These are the ones in the game right now. I hope these bosses seem intriguing due to their movesets and visual designs, as I'm about to show you how they intrigue me. We are the ones who play Minecraft. They tell us how to play our game. 10 million show up, but we play it our own way. Thank you for making a game where no one plays the same. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Thank you for making a game where no one plays the same.